Today we have a reading from the Gospel of John, chapter 1, verses 43 through 51. The next day, Jesus decided to go to Galilee. He found Philip and said to him, "Follow me." Now Philip was from Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter. Philip found Nathanael and said to him, "We have found him about whom Moses in the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus, son of Joseph and Mary from Nazareth." Nathanael said to him, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" Philip said to him, "Come and see." When Jesus saw Nathanael coming toward him, he said of him, "Here is truly an Israelite in whom there is no deceit." Nathanael asked him, "Where did you get to know me?" Jesus answered, "I saw you under the fig tree before Philip called you." Nathanael replied, "Rabbi, you are the child of God. You are the Messiah." Jesus answered, "Do you believe because I told you that I saw you under the fig tree? You will see greater things than these." And he said to him, "Very truly, I tell you, you will see heaven opened and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Humanity."
Can anything good come from Nazareth? Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here with us on this second Sunday of Epiphany. Thank you, Donna, for that beautiful reading this morning. The word epiphany in the English language is meant to describe a sudden and striking realization of a concept. The dictionary says that it is usually a sudden manifestation or perception of the essential nature or meaning of something. In simpler words, it is the aha moment. In our biblical season of Epiphany starts with the initial revelation of the Christ child to the world, proclaimed as instructed by the Magi who present gifts to young Jesus and his family. And each week, as we journey through the earthly life of Jesus, we honor and commemorate the ways that his exceptional humanity and his otherworldly divinity was revealed and recognized by the world that he lived in. And that brings us to the story that we hear today. There was something special about that Jesus that many people could feel right when they met him. Philip recognizes it immediately. Jesus goes to Galilee and upon seeing Philip, tells him to come and follow me. And Philip has no questions or doubts about this. He goes to follow this person that he recognizes as the long-awaited Messiah, and he cannot wait to go tell his friend Nathanael the good news. Can anything good come from Nazareth? This is the question that Nathanael asks his friend Philip when Philip tells him that he has finally found the one that they have been waiting for, the Messiah that they had been promised. Philip once again saw something within the presence of Jesus on this afternoon in Galilee and knew that he had met someone special, someone who would fulfill the good news that had been promised to his people so long ago. He's so sure of what he's seen that he cannot wait to go tell Nathanael that he's found this person. He has finally seen for himself the prophet that Moses promises and foretells to the people in the ancient scriptures, Jesus, son of Mary and Joseph from Nazareth. And as we know, Nathanael, who hasn't seen this guy yet, has one question: can anything good come from Nazareth? And I think it's safe to say, based off of this snarky response, he might not hold the highest view of Nazareth. And we don't exactly know why. Based off the historical accounts, we don't know that there was some kind of explicitly negative view in this society held of Nazareth. We do know it was a smaller, more rural place, far off from the bigger cities like Bethlehem. And so it's possible that people would have seen it as rather insignificant. And this place, Nathanael is supposed to believe, is where their great Messiah comes from. Yeah, he has some doubts about that. Can anything good come from Nazareth? It's such a simple question, yet it somehow encapsulates so much about the ancient world Jesus was a part of, while also I think it draws a lot of immediate associations to the world that we live in today. It so simply represents the ways that we are so quick, maybe as a society, to discount others based off of where they come from, who they are, and how they identify. In this white patriarchal world that we live in, we both consciously and subconsciously discredit those who maybe don't have the characteristics or the physical features that fit into that very small box that institutions deem to be acceptable. Society might ask, can anything good come from someone who isn't white? Can anything good come from an immigrant who was not born in this country? Can anything good come from someone who was born into poverty? Can anything good come from someone who isn't straight or cisgender? As a part of our weekly programming for the past 6 months, we've had the privilege to welcome in some of New York's newest residents into our building twice a week. We have now seen and met hundreds or potentially thousands of the more than 100,000 migrant and asylum seekers who have made their way, or sometimes have been forced their way, into our city. We've met people from over the world who have come here to seek refuge from devastating and life-threatening circumstances in the places that they called home. Many of these people, too, this week, as a side note, but an important side note, are left to be out on the streets as we're seeing the first expiration of the 60-day period that the mayor set forth, that people only have 60 days to be in our shelters before they have to find somewhere else to go. If you don't know anything about that, I encourage you to look more into that. But nonetheless, we've encountered so many individuals and families who are not only here to create a better lives for themselves and their loved ones, but they're also here wanting to make a positive impact on their new community. They come to offer their skills, expertise, and experiences to our city and our country, if only people would let them and give them the chance. If only people would see them as a welcome new addition to our beautifully diverse country, rather than a crisis or a burden. But just like Nathaniel's original reaction in this story, we are more caught up by where they come from and maybe what they look like or what languages they're speaking, to see their full humanity and the ways that they are a beautiful and positive impact to our community. And tomorrow, we commemorate a national holiday, Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And while there's enough to say about his life and legacy to fill up hours worth of sermon material, I actually want to give a quick mention to the part of the King legacy that does not get as much acknowledgement. Coretta Scott King was born in Heiberger, Alabama in 1927. She was delivered at home by her midwife grandmother named Delia Scott, a woman who was born in this country into slavery. Coretta was not from or born into circumstances that 1920s America would have considered impressive or legitimate. But yet, the impact her life made on our country and in our world is something that we're still trying to fathom. This doesn't get talked about enough, but Coretta is the only reason we have an MLK Day to begin with, and is a lot of the reason why King is such a recognizable name among the civil rights leaders of his day. She was the one who fought for her husband's birthday to be recognized as a national holiday for years. The first bill, in fact, to make MLK Day an official federal holiday came in 1968, just 4 days after he was assassinated. And it didn't go through then, but she continued pushing for it until it was finally signed into law in 1986, almost 20 years later. She also, just days after losing her husband and the father of her 4 young children, stepped up and took the mantle of his crucial voice in the civil rights movement so that all that he worked for and died for would not be in vain. And as the years went on, she evolved and continued to expand her work and her activism to speak up for those most vulnerable in the world. Of some of the major civil rights figures of her day, she was one of the first to speak out in support of LGBTQIA people in the 1980s and was a loud voice in opposition to South Africa's unjust apartheid system. The reason why so many of us have known Martin Luther King Jr.'s name since our first day of history class is largely because of her and the way she carried on his work and his legacy. And just like Jesus in our story, many people in our world would sadly be inclined not to give credit to her voice. As a Black woman born into the segregated rural South, but we live in a better world today because she had the courage and the audacity to keep speaking, even in a world that was not inclined to listen to her. Can anything good come from Nazareth? Now, the first concept that I brought to your attention this morning via Nathaniel's question is one that I think, thankfully, this community, I wouldn't get a lot of pushback from it, right? Tiffany and I are both blessed to lead a congregation that doesn't see it as controversial when we assert things like the lives and the voices of our immigrant communities matter. It's not controversial for either of us to say that the voices of the LGBTQIA community should be heard and valued. It's not controversial for us to say that it is crucial to listen to and prioritize the leadership of women, specifically women of color. We value these communities, and many of us, as this beautifully diverse group of people, are the very representatives of some of these undervalued and discriminated communities. We are thankful to lead a congregation that knows lots of good things come from places that we are told good things do not come from. But I do think, sadly, while we can see so much good that can come from others, our Nathaniel-esque doubt appears sometimes when we think about our own potential for goodness and our potential to make a positive impact in the world. Can anything good come from Nazareth? Can anything good come from me and come from where I come from? While we have this beautiful way of seeing the value in others, and we hype them up for their skills and their abilities, I think many of us have a natural way of doubting ourselves. And we may have been made to feel this way for a number of different reasons. Any person in this room who is a woman, well, aren't we all taught from birth to have confidence issues and imposter syndrome? Maybe some of you grew up with a learning disability or an experience of mental illness that made you feel like your work and your contributions were not as valuable as those of your peers. For those of us as a part of the LGBTQ community, maybe we were made to feel ashamed or guilty for who we are, and that made us shy away from leadership or full participation in our communities out of fear or insecurity. Are we able to recognize and affirm the beauty, importance, and humanity within ourselves the same way we are so beautifully quick to recognize it in other people that we encounter? Is that the epiphany that maybe you need to have today? Can anything good come from Nazareth? Well, come and see. The good news in our story this morning is that even though Nathaniel had his initial doubts, they all pretty much melt away at the moment he is in Jesus' presence. Nathaniel isn't able to take Philip at his word that he has witnessed this good news that has come from Nazareth. That can't really be true. So Philip, then seeing his friend's doubt, invites his friend to come and see it for himself, that they have finally found the Messiah, this person that would bring hope into their weary world. And the moment that Nathaniel lays eyes on Jesus and hears Jesus calls out to him, he knows that what he has been told by his friend is true. And Jesus recognizes Nathaniel and sees the goodness and the beauty in Nathaniel when he had witnessed him earlier sitting underneath the fig tree. Jesus tells him he sees an honest person in whom that there is no deceit. And in this moment of being seen and recognized by Jesus, Nathaniel knows once and for all he has encountered someone truly special, Jesus of Nazareth. Can anything good come from Nazareth? The answer is, of course, yes. Sometimes our vision of this truth is clouded by the biases that we are taught to hold about other people. And we are quick to doubt the voices that we aren't taught to see as being important or legitimate. Sometimes seeing the truth in ourselves is clouded by the ways that we were taught to discredit and discount our own authority and our own importance. But just like Nathanael, our doubt does not have to last forever. Hopefully, we will all be lucky enough to have someone in our life like Philip, who doesn't give up on us when we don't believe them the first time. Someone who is patient and knows that sometimes we need to see things for ourselves in order to fully believe in them. Someone who doesn't gloat and say, "I told you so," when it takes us a little bit longer to reach the same truthful conclusion. And maybe sometimes we are called to be Philip in other people's lives, to sit patiently and to wait for someone we care about to reach the truth that we have already recognized on our own time, without letting our ego or our sense of self-righteousness get in the way. Come and see. Nathanael recognizes the greatness of Jesus the moment that Jesus also recognizes Nathanael. Jesus sees Nathanael and recognizes him as the honest, decent person he had seen earlier, sitting beneath that fig tree. That signals something in Nathanael's brain that lets him know that he has been told what he has been told by his friend is true. He is encountering the very presence of God before him. And Jesus, I think, has a rather funny response to Nathanael in this moment. He says to him, "Nathan, you realize I'm the Messiah now just because I remembered you from seeing you sit underneath the fig tree earlier? If you think that's something special, well, you've not seen anything yet. Before I'm through, you will see heaven and earth open up and the angels of God ascending and descending." When we are able to fully open our vision to the goodness within others, and when we are fully able to open our vision to the goodness within ourselves, it opens us up to a whole new world of possibilities, things we can't even fathom yet. We are able to experience and accept love from others in a way we never knew possible when we see the full beauty of the flawed and imperfect humanity that we all share in. We are able to experience and accept the love of God in a way we never knew possible when we are able to see the full divinity within ourselves and the full divinity within all those we encounter. Can anything good come out of our neighbor, out of those in our community who we serve and who we lead alongside with? Yes, of course. Can anything good come out of our own messy and imperfect lives? Yes, of course. It is a truth that is so simple, and yet sometimes it's hard to believe until others are willing to help us see it so clearly for ourselves. And once we do, well, as Jesus paraphrased would say, you haven't seen anything yet. Amen.